My number three is a little movie called Bourne Identity. The quick IMDb log line, by the way, this movie's from 2002, sorry. Directed by Doug Liman, starring obviously Matt Damon, Chris Cooper, Franca Potente, a bunch of other people. But the quick logline is: a man is picked up by a fishing boat, bullet riddled and suffering from amnesia, before racing to elude assassins and attempting to regain his memory. So I watched this movie when I was in undergrad, and I remember watching this movie with a whole bunch of college friends. Um, Honestly, not really caring or really even understanding what the plot of the movie
Uh-huh.
was. But I think this movie really started my love of movies that what I call do sort of the globe hopping thing, where suddenly, lettering would appear on the screen on the bottom right or the bottom left saying, "You are here, you are here." And I don't know, I just find that so thrilling. I always have. It sort of speaks to my sort of adventure person, whatever, or travel monkey person that might be living inside me.
Uh-huh.
And I just love that. It's sort of a passport to the world. And that's all I remember. There are a million such movies, usually spy thrillers, Bond, blah, blah, blah. But I sort of trace it all back to this movie
Oh,
where
okay.
that really started for me. And since then, especially Pierce Brosnan's Bond uh, section, all of it to me is like a passport travel. I don't remember anything from any of those movies, but this is actually a brilliant movie too. So that's why this is on the list. I rewatched it recently just in preparation for this podcast, and was blown away by like how much this movie holds up and how brilliant it is. And I think now in retrospect, and now that we're doing these podcasts, I think it spoke to me at a deeper level, which is sort of this feeling of being a foreigner, but sort of blending into another place in a very day-to-day casual way. Like this movie doesn't romanticize the beautiful locales of Europe or wherever you're at. You are at these places, but it's very handheldy. It's very much guy on the street, girl on the street, having interactions. And that's something that speaks to me as a traveler. The other thing that speaks to me in watching the movie again is sort of there's a sense of urgency and frantic pacing to the movie. Like you're dropped into it right off the bat. And it speaks to that side of me as a traveler that wants to pack in everything. Because I know I'm only there for 2 days. And you sort of fish out of water a little bit in this new place. So I think it captures that energy for me. And the fish out of water thing is interesting too, because Matt Damon's character is literally a fish out of water. He doesn't remember anything, but obviously he's very adept at navigating whatever he has to navigate. So there's a little bit of that too, that resonates with me as a traveler. When you drop in somewhere, you don't really know where you're going, what you're doing, but the drive and sort of just the excitement of being there sort of pushes you through, and you're willing to do whatever you have to do to see and pack in as much. So I think it captures that intensity and energy for me. But otherwise, as a movie, I think this is top tier Matt Damon. I can't see anybody else in this movie. I mean, I love Bond for sure, but to me, this is probably my favorite when it comes to these kind of movies. Great ensemble cast. We talk a lot about mise-en-scène on this podcast. What an incredible score. It's just beautifully shot. The plot actually does make sense, but it's the right balance of, intricacies, but yet not sort of getting so, up there in your head that you sort of are lost. There's enough breadth in a fast-paced movie to kind of enjoy where you're at and be with the people and be at the places you're in. So insanely rewatchable. And I'm so glad that I came back and watched this movie. And now this is going to be on my rewatchable list. And I guess the last thing I would say here is that, well, actually two things. The second Bourne movie was shot in Goa in India. And I remember sort of watching that because at that time I was in India and sort of seeing that, oh my gosh, like a Hollywood big production is shot here. So I have a bit of that personal connection with this movie. And then, yeah, the last thing I would just say is that I think this movie fueled my desire to kind of take these trips and
Mm-hmm.
put myself outside of my comfort zone. So yeah, that's Bourne Identity, my number 3.
Cool. Yeah, this movie I like a lot as well. In terms of the travel piece of it, it is interesting. Like you mentioned Bond too, and it's hard to bring up Bourne and not compare them to Bond, but those films are the Bond films, not only just the Brosnan ones, but really just dating back all the way to Connery, are travelogue films. They're globe-trotting films. They go around the world. Oh, here's the Bahamas, here's the
Right.
North Africa, India, etc. And they always look amazing, and Bond looks cool, and there's nice expensive hotels, and like you want to go to all these places. And contrasting it with this movie, which goes to some cool places, right? Like Mediterranean, Switzerland, Paris, Greece, but they look very like run down, realistic, unglamorized is probably the best way to put it. Which, you go to some of these places, it's not going to look like you go. It's not like you're James Bond. You're going to be in the hostels sometimes. You're not going to be in like the 10-star hotels. So I love how that contrast just brings a lot of the more like real world grittiness.
It's not romanticized at all.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, the big action car chase sequence in this film, he's in like this crummy little like European car that's like kind of a piece of shit. A Bond movie, he'd be driving around in some incredible like Aston Martin, and so like, even that action sequence is very gritty, which I think this movie does a really good job as being a globe-trotting travelogue film, but not romanticizing the locations for sure. And I agree with all the things you said just about the score being great. John Powell did a great job. I actually like the score for the second one even more. I think
that's the one I've been listening to since I watched, because I watched all three back, not all three, but 3 of them back to back after I rewatched this one.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And personally, like I remember seeing this film in the theaters, thought it was okay. Like it didn't immediately, like a lot of my friends were like, oh my God, Bourne's incredible. Like, yeah, it was fine. And it wasn't until I saw the second film. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like what Greengrass did in that film and then the third one just really blew me. I went back and then would watch this, and I feel like now it's kind of a better film because of the subsequent ones. But yeah, I mean, this film is again a great spy thriller. Definitely holds up 20 years later. Damon does a great job. I mean, all the things you said, I definitely like second. But just interesting, just with that gritty realism, which sometimes you go to these places in real life and they're not like they are in the movies. I think this movie does a good job of that.
Yeah.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.